the Apes, man. We're going to go see Planet of the Apes. So I look on the iPhone app, and it says, okay, take me to this one. And the guy goes, okay. I go, is that in a good neighborhood? He's like, oh, yeah. Guy barely speaks English. He takes us there. We get out, and we're giggling. Oh, we're going to go see Planet of the Apes. We walk into Planet of the Apes. We walked into Africa, dude. We walked in the door, and there was no white people. There was no white people.
I just want to get it. And when I get it, I'm going to do something with it. Dope spot. I never worry about what I don't got. This is the dope spot. So check this out. A little video from my boy Joe Rogan, right? Now, Joe Rogan has been the topic of a lot of controversy lately for spreading inaccurate information about COVID. And he's come under some racism controversy lately. And we got the video right here. And we're just going to go ahead and get into it. This is Joe Rogan's second apology. Okay, in the last week. Second apology.
Hello, friends. I'm making this video to talk about the most regretful and shameful thing that I've ever had to talk about publicly. There's a video that's out that's a compilation of me saying the N-word. It's a video that's made of clips taken out of context of me of 12 years of conversations on my podcast, and it's all smushed together, and it looks fucking horrible, even to me. Now, All
right, so, you know what? I like Joe Rogan, and I like his podcast. I like his comedy. When I first found out about his podcast, maybe 6 years ago, I was intrigued. I was intrigued by a lot of guests that he had, the openness of the conversation, the insightfulness, how deep they would get, and I fell into a rabbit hole. Watched all of Joe Rogan's videos, and I noticed him saying the N-word, but I never felt like it was. He was saying it in a racist way. I felt like he was just saying it because why not say what it is we're talking about instead of saying the N-word all the time? Like, I didn't have a problem with that at all because I felt like it wasn't in a negative manner. Okay.
I know that to most people, there's no context where a white person is ever allowed to say that word, never mind publicly on a podcast. And I agree with that now. I haven't said it in years, but for a long time, when I would bring that word up, like if it would come up in conversation, instead of saying the N-word, I would just say the word. I thought as long as it was in context, people would understand what I was doing. Like that context.
Here's the thing. No one will ever. Some people will understand, but some people just don't even want to hear it. Some people don't want to hear it coming from white folks, and some people don't even want to hear it coming from black folks.
That context was part of the clip we were talking about Red Fox, how Red Fox said that word on television in the 1970s, and how times have changed so much since then. Or about how Richard Pryor used it as one of the titles of one of his albums. Or I was quoting a Lenny Bruce bit, or I was quoting a Paul Mooney bit, or I was talking about how Quentin Tarantino used it repeatedly in Pulp Fiction. Or I was talking about how a Netflix executive, ironically, used it because he was trying to compare it to another offensive word, and he said it out loud, and they fired him. Not calling anybody or just saying the word out loud. I was also talking about how there's not another word like it in the entire English language, because it's a word where only one group of people is allowed to use it, and they can use it in so many different ways. Like if a white person says that word, it's racist and toxic, but a black person can use it and it could be a punchline. It could be a term of endearment. It could be lyrics to a rap song. It could be a positive affirmation. It's a very unusual word.
I don't think we really need to get into why white people shouldn't use the N-word. I think it's obvious, okay? Now, as far as black people using the N-word, a lot of people say, it's a term of endearment. It can be anything. Black people will call white people the N-word, They will call Mexicans the N-word. They will call their enemy the N-word. We will call our brother the N-word. We will, just like he said, use it as a punchline, use it as an adjective, use it as a noun. The N-word in our culture can mean anything. You know what I mean? You could say, that nigga crazy, or that's my nigga, or if you feel distraught about something, you be like, nigga. It can mean anything, okay? Now, what I realized one day, and this was a long time ago, right? When white people hear us say the N-word, they think we're talking about black people, right? And that was like an aha moment to me right there. Whereas we're saying it's a popular word in our culture that we use almost for anything. Whereas when white people hear it, they think black people, period. And we have totally disconnected from the roots and the origin of the word, whereas white people have not, and they cannot.
But it's not my word to use. I'm well aware of that now, but for years I used it in that manner. I never used it to be racist because I'm not racist, but whenever you're in a situation where you have to say, I'm not racist, you fucked up. And I clearly have fucked up.
That's a good point.
And that's my intention to express myself in this video. To say, there's nothing I can do to take that back. I wish I could. Obviously, that's not possible. I do hope that, if anything, that this can be a teachable moment. Because I never thought it would ever be taken out of context and put in a video like that. And now that it is, holy shit, it looks bad. And it's part of also me doing this podcast for thousands of hours, thousands of episodes, over 12 years. I said a lot of fucking stupid shit, which is fine when you're talking about most things, but not when you're talking about race. And there's another clip that I have to address. There's a clip from 11 years ago.
Okay, the clip that he's about to address right now is really what made me start looking at Joe Rogan sideways. And I went on a straight up rant on a lot of his videos, like asking him to address that, because I was so hurt that my favorite podcast and my favorite, my absolute favorite thing to watch on YouTube was the JRE. Okay, now after this comment, this Planet of the Apes comment, it really threw me off, and I would still watch it and I would still support it, because I was thinking maybe he didn't mean it that way. Like, maybe I'm taking this out of context. I don't know, but I understand. Let's hear his point of view.
I was telling a story on the podcast about how me and my friend Tommy and his girlfriend, we got really high. We were in Philadelphia and we went to go see Planet of the Apes. And we didn't know where we were going. We just got dropped off by a cab, and we got dropped off in this all-black neighborhood. And I was trying to make the story entertaining, and I said, we got out, and it was like we were in Africa. It's like we were in Planet of the Apes. I did not, nor would I ever say that black people are apes, but it sure fucking sounded like that. And I immediately afterwards said, that's a racist thing to say. Planet of the Apes wasn't even in Africa. I was just saying there's a lot of black people there. But then I went on to talk about what a positive experience it was and how much fun it was to go to see this movie in a black neighborhood. It wasn't a racist story, but it sounded terrible. And like I said, you can have clunky stories about anything, but not about race. And so I deleted that whole podcast, but obviously somebody made a clip out of it and taken out of context. It looks terrible, but it looks terrible even in context. It's a fucking idiotic thing to say. And I was just trying to be entertaining. I certainly wasn't trying to be racist. And I certainly would never want to offend someone for entertainment with something as stupid as racism.
All right. You can catch the rest of this video on Joe Rogan's IG account. He posted it late last night. I'm gonna lie to you, it was late. I just happened to come up on it. It was like 2 minutes old. But I will agree with him that even though we have platforms where we can say whatever we want to say, we still want to be mindful of our fans. And I think that some creators feel like they have a certain fan base and this is their fan base, and they don't realize how many people are watching them or what type of people are watching them or who all is watching them. Like, for instance, me, I never thought in a million years that I would be a podcast like this would be my favorite thing to watch, like over any TV show, any YouTube channel. It's Joe Rogan podcast. So I appreciate his apology. I appreciate him for getting above it and explaining that. And he doesn't read comments. That's his thing. He doesn't read comments. So I think that I think that's true. I think he really doesn't. And so I think he might be oblivious to a lot of the criticism that he might get for things that he might say, because I've been seeing this for years about this Planet of the Apes thing, and I always wanted him to respond to it. And I don't know if it's genuine, how genuine it could be right now, especially since he's under so much fire. But at the same time, man, we all human. We all make mistakes. We all say things out of context. I know I have. I know you have. And you know what? We forgive, we learn, and we let move on. And we let people move on, and we move on with life. You know what I mean? We don't judge a person by their past, especially after an apology. So I appreciate this. I appreciate Joe Rogan for this. And I'm still a fan. And this is the dope spot. And I'm going to holler at y'all.
I just wanna get it, and when I get it, I'ma do something with it. If you got it for me, I'ma come and get it. If I gotta hunt you, I'ma run and get it. Some of y'all get it, you don't know nothing with it. All I'ma need is about a couple minutes. I flip a digit into 100 digits, then I'ma give it to someone who doesn't get it.